Hi, I'm Sarah Donchi. Heading home for the holidays means stress. A lot of stress for a lot of people in different places, and severe weather could make things harder, bringing delays and cancellations across the country. We have everything you need to know before making that post-Christmas trek. Plus, all those holiday gifts may be more expensive next year if President-elect Trump follows through with his tariff threats. We're keeping an eye on that and more. This is CBS News 24/7. We do begin this hour overseas, where 38 people aboard an Azerbaijan Airlines flight were killed yesterday. The plane was traveling from Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, to Grozny, Russia, when the pilots tried to make an emergency landing and crashed in Kazakhstan. Miraculously, 29 people survived that. Now there are questions about why the plane was diverted and whether Russian air defenses are to blame. CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Libsay has the latest.
Well, there are indeed new developments in the plane crash in Kazakhstan, as investigators now suspect Russian anti-aircraft defenses may have been involved. This theory emerged after radar data revealed missile activity in the area at the time of the crash. While Russia has yet to comment, aviation experts say this could point to a misfire. Authorities in Kazakhstan are working with Russian investigators, but tensions are rising over who will lead that inquiry. The Embraer 190 jet went down on Christmas Day just off the Caspian Sea in Kazakhstan. Rescuers described a chaotic scene as they pulled survivors from the wreckage, some of them missing their shoes. The jet split in half and flipped upside down and laid scattered across the ground, with debris and casualties stretching for hundreds of feet in this remote part of Central Asia. Meanwhile, search teams have recovered critical components of the aircraft, including the black boxes, which are expected to provide more answers in the coming days. Now, the model of jet, the ERJ 190, is made by a Brazilian company. JetBlue is the biggest American company that uses this model, but it had already said it was planning on retiring this model of jet next year. Back to you.
The video of that is just so disturbing and scary. Well, this is people gathering for a moment of silence honoring the victims today at the Baku airport where the plane first took off. All right, now we go to Arizona, where police say a family dispute at the Phoenix airport on Christmas night ended with 3 people shot and 1 person stabbed. This happened at an airport restaurant outside the security checkpoint. Police say it all started with a physical fight.
The altercation escalated when somebody produced a handgun. All 5 individuals that are involved in this incident are all known to each other. No community members or visitors were injured outside of this group.
At last check, all 3 victims were in stable condition. Police detained a man and a girl, but they didn't explain what the fight was about or how the fight started. The security checkpoint in that terminal shut down when the fighting began. We're also learning more about a tragic discovery in Hawaii. A body was found in the wheel well of a United Airlines plane. The flight flew from Chicago to Maui on Christmas Eve, and the crew found the body after the plane landed in Hawaii. Officials are still trying to figure out how the person ended up there and how they died, but United Airlines says the wheel well is only accessible from the outside. Thousands of people hit the skies today to start the journey back home for post-holiday travel. Delays and cancellations have started stacking up as storms are moving in across the South and in the Pacific Northwest. Dallas-Fort Worth International reported the most cancellations so far, with nearly 100 grounded flights, according to FlightAware. Joining us for more on what is usually a stressful day to travel is CBS News correspondent Skylar Henry at Atlanta International. How are people there today? Is it zen, or is it as stressful as it might sound?
Hey, Sarah, good to see you as always. You know, it's funny, considering that this is the world's busiest airport, to use your word, it is pretty zen here. The wait times to get through one of the main checkpoints, less than 2 minutes right now, which is saying something considering the fact that what this airport is. But a lot of those concerns, as you pointed out, are in the Pacific Northwest right now, and especially in the Texas area. Just in the last 20 minutes or so, we've learned that there have been ground stops at DFW in Dallas, as well as some other concerns, paying attention to possible tornado watches and warnings in Houston as well. And many meteorologists that we've heard from throughout the day today have signaled that that will be a point of concern all throughout the day today, especially in Texas, especially if those flights are trying to get out of their respective area. Right now, those ground stops have been going on for at least the last hour and a half to 2 hours or so. We'll see what happens as the day continues to progress and whether a lot of people who are wanting to make their way back home will be able to take off in time.
Yeah, Skylar, that is sort of the name of the game when you fly on a day like today. How are delays and cancellations looking in Atlanta right now?
So it's relatively smooth. The weather appears to be pretty clear here, and so that means that we're not seeing what we anticipated in terms of the busy holiday travel rush. What they say here at this particular airport is that it will be incredibly busy tomorrow, where more than 300,000 people will be making their way back to their respective destinations, and really all across the country that is what we will be seeing. Some of the busier travel days throughout this holiday stretch tomorrow, and the days surrounding New Year's Eve and New Year's themselves. And so I think a lot of people expecting to pack their patience, many of them getting here hours ahead of their respective flights, but they know that it will take a little bit of time before they can make it on the way home.
Yeah, this is not the day to cut it close. So, Skylar, I've seen you in so many places over the years. So I know you probably drive a lot, but you probably fly more than you drive. As somebody who's kind of an expert on this, what do you think helps on days like today that are supposed to be busy?
Wine. No, I'm kidding. I think what really is out there, I think it depends circumstantially about what it is you're doing, where you're going, and how many people really you're traveling with. A lot of the people that we spoke with leading up to the holiday season, they said that they were traveling with family members and so on. And so because of that, if you take into consideration what the cost of certain airline tickets are, it might be easier to just pack everyone in the car and then hit the road. Also, take into the fact that gas prices are down 8% from this time a year ago. And that obviously means that you can save a little bit more and do what you need to do to make it to your respective destinations. Now, if you aren't worried about the weather, if you aren't worried about those costs, then obviously air travel is the way to go in terms of getting to where you'd like to go quicker. But I think it will be interesting to see what happens on these busy travel days, as well as with the weather throughout the country. We talked about the Pacific Northwest and what's going on in Texas and in the South, but also you got to pay attention to the snow in the Northeast as well, because that is certainly hampering some people's travel plans especially.
Yeah, but also wine, I think. All right, Skylar Henry.
Exactly.
Live in Atlanta with all the pro tips for us. Thank you, sir. See you soon. All right, take a look at the weather in Dallas right now. Skylar was just talking about that. Severe storm threats are causing a lot of the problems that we've been talking about at the airport in Dallas. They've got flash flood warnings there. They could get up to 4 inches of rain in parts of Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Jessica Birch is here tracking all of that for us. Jess?
You know, we're also dealing with a tornado watch just south of Dallas right now, too, that the National Weather Service just issued. So let's dive down there real fast and take a look at this storm as it continues to sweep all the way across eastern portions of Texas, over the state of Louisiana, slowly but surely throughout the next couple hours. And eventually it's going to pass the Mississippi, break apart, and move off into the east, with still some heavy storms in the forecast for us into the overnight hours tonight. Now we head down to Dallas. All that yellow color you see, that's that tornado watch, anywhere from Corpus Christi all the way up into Houston, close to Dallas as well. And zooming in just a little bit closer, there's still those flash flood warnings that are in effect too. So taking a look behind me, let's time this storm out, because if you live in this area and you're trying to hit the roads, worst time to be doing that, especially just along those coastal communities near Corpus Christi, like I mentioned, all the way up into southern portions of Oklahoma, where some of the heaviest storms are currently sweeping off to the east. Now we advance the clock all the way in the next couple hours, and we'll continue to watch the storm develop, pushing off closer to Little Rock and all the way over into the Mississippi too. It looks like this froze, so I'm actually going to send it back over to you, Sarah. But what we are expecting to see is anywhere up to around 2 inches of rain on top of that tornado watch in effect until the evening hours tonight. tonight.
Yeah, I know from experience that sometimes when those storms pop up in Texas and South Texas, they get strong really fast and they can be scary.
Across
All
those
right,
plains.
Jessica, thank you so much. President-elect Donald Trump is doubling down on talk of expanding U.S. territory, which has gotten quite the reaction around the world, as you might imagine. On Christmas Day, Trump posted about Greenland, Canada, and the Panama Canal, suggesting that the U.S. could take control of all three. CBS News political reporter Torian Small joins us now from West Palm Beach, Florida. So, Torian, former President Trump jabbed at Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, actually calling him governor, and he even teased a steep tax cut for the Canadian people. Not things that you hear normally.
Yeah, I mean, the idea behind that is that the U.S. will annex and make Canada another part of the U.S. territory, which just won't happen. As we know, it's not for sale. And it's also a sovereign nation that is looking to continue to partner with the U.S., but not necessarily be a part of the U.S. I think the reason, though, that we're seeing Trump use this type of verbiage is because his first administration was pretty instructive. He revels in being this provocateur when it comes to foreign relations, but really he's telegraphing dissatisfaction with U.S. trade policy abroad, which is why he is on the attack on Trudeau, and this is why we've seen him mention the U.S. taking over the Panama Canal. Now, when it comes to Trudeau, we know that he met with the president in late November at Mar-a-Lago, shortly after President Trump clinched the presidential election. We understood at the time when Trudeau exited that they had good talks, but as we can see, they're back to the same icy relations that they had during his first term.
And Torian, part of this is, you know, the former president talks this way, and then he has diplomats working under him who sort of have to still deal in those ways with their counterparts, their foreign counterparts. And President-elect Trump just announced his pick for U.S. ambassador to Panama after sparking this big feud over taking control of the canal. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Kevin Cabrera is current Miami-Dade commissioner. He won his seat in 2022 after Trump's endorsement. He is a staunch supporter and one of the more loyal Trump followers that we've seen run for office. He was a part of his 2020 election campaign here in Florida, and he was also the executive director of the America First Policy Institute's Florida chapter. So like many of the folks shaping out Trump's cabinet, loyalty is obviously the through line here as we see more of these names come out.
Torian, you know, the former president got some attention for talking about this territorial expansion, but he also responded to something that the Biden administration did that has also gotten a lot of attention. Trump had a message for the 37 people that had their death sentences commuted by President Biden. What can you tell us about that?
Well, Donald Trump slammed it over a series of posts to his social media site, Truth Social, saying that this is evidence in his mind of the Biden administration, especially on its way out, being soft on crime. He's looking to draw daylight between the two administrations, saying instead he's going to direct his Department of Justice to push heavily into the death penalty for people who commit some of the criminal acts that were relevant to the folks who received the pardoning or the commuting of some of their sentencing in the federal prisons across the country. Again, Donald Trump's looking to separate himself from Joe Biden, especially moving into this administration, saying that when it comes to crime, this is an administration that is for law and order and is obviously tough on crime.
Yeah, probably not the last time we'll hear about that subject from the former president and now president-elect. Torian Small, thank you so much. Hope you're having a great holiday. All right, Christmas may be more expensive next year. We have more on how potential Trump tariffs could affect those coveted holiday gifts. All right, let's take a look down in Texas, where search teams are desperately trying to find a missing 8-year-old girl. Her family's SUV crashed into a drainage ditch on Christmas Eve, and officials think that she was swept away in the water. Rescuers tried expanding the search radius yesterday, but they still have not been able to find her. 4 other family members were pulled out of the car, but the girl's father did not survive. All right, jumping the map to New York, where a taxi driver hit 6 people near the Macy's flagship store in Herald Square. 3 people were transported to the hospital, including a 9-year-old boy. Officials are looking into whether the driver suffered from a medical episode. Lock in those lottery tickets. The Mega Millions jackpot passed $1 billion after nobody won. No winning ticket was pulled on Christmas Eve. So this marks the 5th biggest prize in the game's history. The next drawing is tomorrow. Family-owned toy shops rely on the holidays to make money, but they could get caught in the crosshairs of a trade war if President-elect Donald Trump makes good on his promise to slap big tariffs on China. Money Watch's Kelly O'Grady reports on the impact tariffs could have on your wallet and your children's toy box.
Yeah, this is made in China. This is made in China. This is made in China. One of my favorites.
Jennifer Bergman is the owner of West Side Kids, an independent New York City toy store founded by her mother over 40 years ago.
People that used to shop here as children are now shopping for their children.
Large retailers like Amazon already dominate the U.S. toy market. With that size, they could likely absorb some of a tariff on China. Small businesses like West Side Kids can't.
Where do most of the products in your store come from?
China.
And kind of what percentage?
90%, I'd say.
And so if there was a tariff, would prices go up for consumers?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How quickly?
Probably instantly.
Bergman admitted she would have to pass the cost of those import taxes onto shoppers.
I love this store.
If prices were to go up, would that force you to shop somewhere else?
Yeah, it would be hard.
As more customers turn to cheaper online outlets, small toy stores are a vanishing business, along with the in-store experience.
We're a toy store. It's a magical place to bring a child.
So, Henry, what are you looking for today in the toy store?
I might get that.
With higher costs and slowing sales, Jennifer Bergman worries a potential tariff on toys made in China could put her out of business.
If you were to close, what would that mean?
Well, it would be heartbreaking. It would be a real loss for the community. I can't really imagine not being here.
All right, Kelly O'Grady joining us live now. That little boy Henry was shopping like he was in control of the wallet. That was a very cute story. Thank you for bringing us that. And also, that was the negative impact of potential tariffs. Can you explain what is President-elect Trump's plan for using tariffs to his advantage?
Yeah, Sarah, I mean, look, there is a trade-off because tariffs can be a very good negotiating tool. And this is definitely something that President-elect Trump did under his first term and is looking to do during this upcoming term, because it's not just, hey, we're going to put tariffs on your country. It's we're going to do this unless you do X, Y, and Z. So there are certainly things that he's looking to get out of that threat of a tariff. The other thing is to encourage domestic manufacturing, bringing jobs, bringing some of those toy capabilities, if we're talking about that industry, into the United States. The quality would also be better. However, like I said, it's a trade-off because that investment, that capability ramp up takes time, and products that are made in the United States always cost more. Labor, materials, everything costs more. And while we like to shop small and we like to shop made in America, we also like to go with that best price, Sarah.
Yeah, and we have to build the manufacturing infrastructure here for certain industries that we just don't have. So, Kelly, a lot of people return stuff today. Who can relate to getting the ugly sweater and taking it back? It happens. This year is set to break records, though, in returns, according to the National Retail Federation. How have you seen return policies change over the years, and do you think those changes have had an impact on how people actually shop?
I think they definitely have had an impact, Sarah. You see more of the low risk to no risk return policies, free shipping if you want to send something back, a full refund 30 to 60 days from that date of purchase. We are expecting to see 17% of all retail sales in 2024 returned. That's close to $900 billion. But I think you're seeing some of that behavior of, let's say, I'm getting this sweater for someone. Maybe I'll get a couple of different sizes, a couple of different colors, because I have that idea of, well, I can always return it. However, even though we are going to see record returns, I mean, I think we've all been guilty of saying, yeah, I'm going to get to the store, I will return it, I'll send it back, and then that deadline does go by. So you always have to make sure to keep the receipt and keep an eye on those dates.
Yeah, chronically guilty personally of doing that. Some things never get returned. Let's shift the focus to Wall Street. I think this time of year you hear the phrase Santa Claus rally. What is that, and how is that affecting the stock exchange, if at all, this year?
This is one of my favorite terms when it comes to Wall Street. So the Santa Claus rally refers to the 5 trading days for the market at the end of the year that actually started December 24th this year through the first 2 trading days of the new year. So that's going to end January 3rd. And this is a time of year where 79% of the time we have actually seen roughly a 1.3% increase in these major indexes. So you see a lot of optimism for the next year, people pouring in money to the stock market, and it doesn't always happen. Right now we are on track for an increase. The last couple trading days have been strong. Today is kind of a mixed bag, but we will see come January 3rd if Santa Claus came to town for the markets or we ended up with coal, Sarah.
Oh, boy. Okay, let's hope Santa Claus was around and doing well. So the Labor Department reported new unemployment benefit numbers. They're holding steady. Is that pretty typical for this time of year?
You know, it is. Those numbers actually came in slightly lower than we expected to see. So it's kind of continuing, or jobless claims, how many people are filing for unemployment. You don't see a ton of movement this time of year. That is a weekly number. Not a lot of people are getting hired or fired during those last couple of weeks of December. That being said, the thing that I really zeroed in on, Sarah, was continuing jobless claims. So those are folks that have been on unemployment, and they are continuing to file for that because they're struggling to find a job. We are seeing that period lengthen, so it does indicate that the labor market demand for labor is waning a bit and people are struggling to find a job. They're waiting a little bit longer. So even though the top line is very strong, you're starting to see some cracks, Sarah.
All right, very interesting. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much for your time. Coming up, we head to Texas for a heartwarming story on 2 police officers and their unique bond. CBS News Eye on America keeps our dedication where it belongs, in your neighborhoods, where you live. Police officers engage with their communities every single day, and sometimes those moments leave a lasting impact. CBS News Texas' Bo Evans shows us how one interaction created a unique and unexpected bond between 2 Fort Worth officers.
You ever think you'd make it?
Just 2 cops taking a look at their class photos. Chance Roman finished the academy last November.
Mine's in black and white, I think, isn't
it? Jesse Norman graduated in 1998. A vet and a rookie, riding in the same car.
We always kind of made the joke, you went from the back seat to the front seat.
20 years ago, Jesse and Chance met under different circumstances.
Well, we'd gotten a call, some kids were throwing rocks.
Nothing crazy, but when Jesse showed up, Chance and his friends ran. Jesse chased.
He more or less caught up to me and took me back to my parents' house. We had a stern conversation. Basically, just you keep going down this path, you're going to be pretty screwed. So
that conversation stuck with Chance for 20 years.
After that night, I stopped hanging out with those group of guys. I stopped hanging out with the same friends I had. I was 11 years old at that time, and the second I turned 15 years old, I moved out on my own. My early teens, I was homeless for a good stretch, staying out of my car, sleeping in my car.
Sometimes Chance still thinks about what his life might have been like if he hadn't had that talk.
I do have an older brother. We grew up in the same house, we grew up in the same neighborhood, same group of friends that didn't have the same positive encounter. And he's been in and out of prison his entire life. And he went this way and I went this way. So, and I'm pretty sure it's where he's at right now.
Something he shares with Jesse.
And I had a choice too. I had a choice to be a bad egg, or my brother spent 18 years, my half-brother, 18 years in penitentiary for being stupid.
A few years later, a Chance meeting brought the two back together. When he was working at a bar, Chance recognized an off-duty cop working the door.
I was like, hey, are you Officer Norman? And he was just like, I am. And then I was like, well, my name's Chance Romans. I don't know, you don't probably remember me. And he just looked at me like I was weird. And he's like, no, you're not.
The two stayed in touch. Chance enlisted in the military, and when he returned, he joined the Fort Worth Police Department.
He could call me at any hour of the day or night. I'll do whatever he needs to do to help, right? Just like I would my own sons.
After he finished the academy, Chance was assigned a week of patrol with a veteran officer.
Hey, your NPO phase starts this day. You're gonna be with Officer J.L. Norman. And I was just like, screenshot immediately, sent it to him. I was just like, I don't know if you had anything to do with this, but looks like I'm coming to you first.
I kind of made a few phone calls.
20 years later, their bond is stronger than the badge.
He's my son, you know. I put as much effort trying to help people as I wanted to be helped.
And perhaps the chance to pay it forward.
If I could just change one person like he changed my life, it's worth it.
In Fort Worth, Bo Evans, CBS News, Texas.
Hey, you just never know how life is going to turn out. All right, live now to Oregon on a wet Thursday in Portland, and hopefully you have the lights on there after strong winds knocked out power to thousands of people across the state. Here's a look at the outage map from utility company Portland General Electric. Lots of outages still going on over there. Utility tracker poweroutage.us says over 42,000 customers in Oregon are without power. Meanwhile, Washington and California are also dealing with thousands of outages from the same storm system. And power outages hit differently when it's cold outside.
Oh my gosh, and wet too. Not only are they dealing with rain just at the lower levels, but I mean up into the mountains. We're talking about the Cascades, the Sierra. They're dealing with a heavy amount of snow right around the corner too. So we're going to dive into that right now, starting off over into California, stretching up along that coastline. What we're expecting as we head into the next 24 hours is the storm system will continue to build from offshore. And it looks like the map's not coming up now too, so let's just pull it up behind me so I can show you what's happening. Widespread throughout the west coast, this area of low pressure has been delivering in some gusty winds, heavy rain and snow throughout these communities, of course causing all those power outages. Now as we take a look at the storm system and the timeline of it, we'll continue to watch this develop throughout the overnight hours tonight, early morning hours tomorrow, breaking apart closer to the Bay Area as we head into this weekend forecast, but it still stays strong up in the Pacific Northwest. Now the snow stretches all the way over into the Rockies as well, but we take a look at the origin of it and where it's starting. Some of the heaviest rain we're expecting to see is in areas along the coast, close to Portland, all the way down along Eugene, stretched all the way into areas like Crescent City and Eureka. We can expect around 4 inches of rain at max as that continues to push its way in. The mountains can receive anywhere up to around 10 to 15 inches of snow, but the winds, especially along the Sierra, anywhere up to around 55 miles per hour. And that's the big reason why this area has winter weather advisories widespread. And we head all the way up into areas like Portland. 2 inches is expected as we head into the next 24 hours. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on how that's going to impact those community members.
Yeah, power outages, snow, terrible combination. Wishing everybody well there. We'll keep an eye on that, as you said, Jess. Thank you so much. We will have an update on the trial for a man accused of attempting to assassinate President-elect Donald Trump. More on that after this break. The man accused of trying to assassinate Donald Trump at his Florida country club in September will not be facing trial until almost a year after he was arrested. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson joining us now. Jessica, first of all, great to see you and talk to you again. It's been a while. I want to ask you, the suspect's attorney had asked for more time to mount an insanity defense. For a regular person watching this, it feels like, wow, this is an incredibly long time since this all happened. Is a delay like this unusual, or is it pretty normal based on what he's charged with here?
Well, both, in the sense that an insanity defense is not a typical defense, and that takes some time. You need to get all of the evidence, and you need to get expert testimony here. What the judge in charge of the case, this is Judge Eileen Cannon. Some people may remember her because she was the federal judge in charge of the Mar-a-Lago case. What she said is, basically, come back to me by February with some initial conclusions about whether or not you are actually going to move forward with an insanity defense. So she has provided some timeline, some deadlines throughout the way. She also did not give the defense everything they wanted. They said, let's not even do anything for a year from now. She said, I think September is soon enough. or gives you enough time. But an insanity defense is very hard to mount. We should remember that it includes not just the defendant showing a significant mental defect, but also that the defendant didn't understand that what he was doing was wrong. And there's a lot of evidence to undercut that here.
Right. And I'm sure that if that's the case, we will hear what that evidence is. But of course, the public wants answers right away. It just seems like that's not going to happen here. And Jessica, since we have you, we're also seeing that the mother of the teen who killed 4 people in the Oxford, Michigan high school shooting is asking a judge to be released from prison. Jennifer and James Crumbly were the first parents to be held criminally responsible for a mass shooting committed by their child. That made a ton of headlines. So now Jennifer is arguing that that she should be out on bond during her appeal, and her attorney is saying that she shouldn't have been prosecuted in the first place. What do you make of this?
Well, this is typical. I mean, basically every defendant who's convicted will appeal. As you said, this is a first in the nation type of situation where she was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, and she was found to be criminally liable based on her own conduct. Essentially, the jury found there were so many red flags that she should have taken action, not vicarious liability, but her own liability, that she should have taken action to prevent these tragedies. Now, it's very unusual that someone would be released pending appeal based on this type of conviction, but she's basically moving forward with, there's a reason this is first in the nation, because you shouldn't make somebody like me, who didn't actually pull the trigger, criminally liable. And we'll see on appeal if that argument has any traction.
Yeah, this could set some precedents. Jessica Levinson, CBS News legal contributor, always great to talk to you. We hope to see you soon. All right, let's jump the map to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where more than 90,000 people are expected to travel in and out of that international airport over the next few days. CBS News Philadelphia's Brandon Goldner reports on the rush.
Good afternoon. About 93,000 people are expected to travel through Philadelphia International Airport today. When it comes to security lines, it's really been 2 different stories. We've seen stories like this one where there's been a lull in the security line, about a 4 to 9 minute wait. We've also seen periods where the security lines have stretched around the building with people waiting as long as 45 minutes. Many people got here early so that they could get their spot online, and they were shocked when they saw just how long the security lines were earlier this morning. When it comes to the boards, we haven't been seeing many delays, a few delays at West Palm Beach and Dallas-Fort Worth, but overall a lot of planes that have been coming in on time. We are expecting to see again 93,000 people coming through the airport. For the whole holiday season this year, the number of passengers we're expecting this year, this holiday season, a 13% jump compared to this time last year. And right now the passenger numbers that we're expecting this year, it's about a half percentage point lower than the record that the airport set back in 2019 and 2020, right before the pandemic. Again, expecting a lot of people throughout the day as we continue to see planes continue to depart and arrive at the airport. It's also important to know that it's only expected to get busier throughout the week, with Sunday being peak times for when we're expected to see a lot of passengers. Brandon Goldner, CBS News, Philadelphia.
You know, this is the time of year where even just a tiny little snag, right? A thunderstorm here or a snowstorm there can cause a ripple effect of a lot of problems. So what are we seeing across the country right now?
It's so wild to think that, like, if you're heading from New York to San Francisco, say, and you have to stop in Dallas, that could just destroy that whole trip, because some of us are dealing with great weather, some of us not so much. So we're going to dive into that right now, starting off over into California and all throughout the Pacific Northwest. What they're dealing with is just this huge area of low pressure bringing in heavy storms, lots of rain, and of course some pretty significant snow too, up into the Cascades all the way down into the Sierra. Now we head all the way over into areas like Dallas and closer to the Mississippi throughout the next couple hours, and heading into the evening hours tonight. We have tornado watches all throughout this region. There's flash flood warnings in effect too. And we're going to continue to watch this specific storm system cause lots of issues for travelers out there too. Taking a look behind me real fast for our travel forecast. I mean, it really depends on where you live. We're talking about beautiful sunnier skies over in Los Angeles with 60s in the forecast. Chilly temperatures in the 40s over in Chicago with some cloudy skies. That area got hit pretty heavy actually with snow recently, especially just around the holiday. That always makes it so challenging. And we head over into Dallas now. Luckily, the these storms will continue to track off into the east, closer to the Mississippi around 4:30 Central Time. But that continues to stretch widespread throughout Mississippi, up into Tennessee and southern Illinois, too, into the overnight hours tonight, giving them plenty of rain right around the corner. Now, rainfall totals were pretty impressive, yes, but the severe weather outlook is really concerning, especially in areas closer to Corpus Christi and Houston, with the severe weather outlook showing an enhanced risk just throughout that region. So if you're getting out there on the roads, if you're trying to head to the airports, it's going to be a little bit tricky for us, but we will keep you updated.
Yeah, those thunderstorms in the coastal bend or storms at all can get very, very strong. Jessica, thanks for keeping an eye on it. The holiday season continues to roll ahead. We have a look at how different religious groups take time to celebrate and reflect ahead of the new year. You're watching CBS News. To the Middle East, with tensions growing in Syria in the aftermath of the fall of the Assad regime. At least 14 security personnel were killed by former forces of the ousted president. BBC Middle East correspondent Lena Sinjab is in Damascus with more on the violence.
This is the first time the leadership of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham clashes with operatives of Bashar al-Assad's regime since the toppling of Assad's forces. It's a big challenge for them. 14 members have been killed. That's why the leadership have sent reinforcement to many cities and towns where Alawites are based, and many pro-regime operatives are there. They are trying to arrest those who had blood on their hands, contributed and participated in the killing of Syrians over the past decade. But many of the Alawite communities who took to the streets yesterday, including religious leaders, are calling for general amnesty for all the Alawite community, something that will never happen because many have blood on their hands. Other Syrians are calling for justice, are calling for legal procedures and prosecution for those who are responsible for the disappearance and the torture of tens of thousands of Syrians. It is critical time, and the new government has only been there a bit over 2 weeks, and they will need time to establish stability and provide the legal procedure for the right prosecution.
That was BBC Middle East correspondent Lena Sinjab reporting from Damascus. It is our Eye on America, CBS News commitment to hear your stories in your communities. We hope you had a nice Christmas and happy Hanukkah and Kwanzaa to those that celebrate. Today we have the story of 4 leaders from 4 different churches in West Texas who picked a novel way to preach tolerance and acceptance. CBS News correspondent Jason Allen reports on the power of not just walking in another man's shoes, but preaching from his pulpit.
Anyone walking into this Mexican restaurant in Midland, Texas, probably wouldn't give a second glance to the 4 guys at a corner table laughing over their enchiladas. But this lunch meetup wouldn't be found on everyone's menu around here.
My great-grandfather was pastor for a long time, and he would be horrified at this partnership. He would be horrified.
Darren Wood is a Baptist pastor, and Steve Brooks, Alan Stanglin, and Steve Shore are pastors too, but not Baptists, leading to some eternal differences of opinion.
They're the only ones going to heaven.
Oh, wait, I've heard that about the Baptists.
I've heard that all of my life.
Yeah, we've all claimed that at one point in time, right?
65% of people here in Midland County regularly go to church, but not the same church. In fact, there are as many as 45 different religious traditions represented here, from Protestant to Catholic to Hindu to Muslim.
A few years ago, the newest leader of one of those West Texas churches was Stanglin at the Church of Christ. He was curious about finding ways his church community could do more for the Midland community. So he put in a call to a Presbyterian.
So is it okay if our whole church comes to your church? And so...
Wait, you went right away from lunch to let's have our whole church come over to the Presbyterian church?
You might ask Steve, but yeah.
Okay,
yeah, that's how it happened.
In those post-pandemic years, the friendship grew to 4. And then this fall, during an election season where they saw a divide in their city and the country, an idea developed to reach across their own major denominational lines.
Who made that suggestion to switch pulpits, and did anybody hesitate?
I think we all hesitated.
I don't know. I don't know who.
We believe that the Word
Denominations have built their foundations over centuries, with leaders taking great care not to undermine a church's beliefs.
I was a little worried, maybe, not because I didn't trust Alan, but because we'd never tried this before. This was a grand and beautiful experiment.
On a Sunday morning in November,
would y'all please help me give Pastor Darren a warm welcome?
the Baptist preached to Presbyterians. The Church of Christ pastor gave his first sermon to the First Baptists.
I have spent all of my preaching life trying to make sure we get out on time to beat the Baptist. And now I'm with the Baptist.
We've got a cross in our church, too.
And if there was grumbling or griping from the pews, not a single pastor said they heard a word of it.
What came to me is people are sick and tired of division. Unity takes relationship. It takes Mexican food, right? Right? It does. Sitting down and talking to each other. And if people are willing to do that, it will happen.
This is an opportunity to...
Maybe then, a Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, and Church of Christ pastor can go into a restaurant together, and it won't be a joke anymore.
Wonderful. Thank you.
For Eye on America, Jason Allen in Midland, Texas.
They may have started a trend. All right, jumping our map to Texas, where search teams are desperately trying to find a missing 8-year-old girl. Her family's SUV crashed into a drainage ditch on Christmas Eve, and officials think she was swept away in the strong water. Rescuers tried expanding the search radius yesterday, but they still have not been able to find her. 4 other family members were pulled out of the car, but the girl's father did not survive the crash. Lock in those lottery tickets. The Mega Millions jackpot passed $1 billion after no winning ticket was pulled on Christmas Eve. This marks the 5th biggest prize in the game's entire history. The next drawing is tomorrow.
It's a real life movie and a real life hold down. Don't be a hey, take it to the floor now.
All right, Beyonce sent the Bayhive buzzing after a 13-minute Christmas halftime show that streamed on Netflix as part of yesterday's football game between the Ravens and Texans. She sang her hits, including some of her newer ones, Texas Hold'em from her album Cowboy Carter. That was the first time she performed those songs in front of a live audience. Daughter Blue Ivy joined her on the field, and she also performed with Shabuzi and Post Malone. Fans said they loved the show.
Who else is going to do halftime? I mean, I think she should do Super Bowl again, too, but hey, that's just me.
Beyonce is obviously not new to the game. She also headlined the 2013 Super Bowl in New Orleans and joined Coldplay and Bruno Mars on the field in the Bay Area during the 2016 Super Bowl show. Staying in Texas, where weather officials bumped up the severe weather threats to include possible tornado warnings. Thunderstorms now rolling across Dallas with up to 4 inches of rain expected to hit the state. Obviously, people there are going to have to be on very high alert today.
Completely. I mean, from flash flooding all the way over into the tornado watches and warnings that are now in effect. It's a lot of issues right now for travelers as they're gearing up to head into the New Year week, and lots of weather making it challenging for travelers out there on the roads and, of course, the airports, too. So here's what's happening for us. We head outside in areas like Dallas down into Corpus Christi or Houston. They're dealing with some of the most impactful storms we've seen so far today, and this continues to track off into the east. This is going to impact areas along the Mississippi from Tennessee all the way up into Kentucky, and then slowly but surely it's actually going to spread a lot wider later tonight, hitting areas like Indiana and Illinois. Now, all that yellow you see on the map right now just along the coastline of Texas, that's that tornado watch that's still in effect right now by the National Weather Service, and it's all a part of the strong area of low pressure that continues to bring in heavy showers, thunderstorm activity, and of course potential for hail too and tornadoes as it moves its way into the 5, 6, 7 o'clock hour tonight off into the east. Now into the overnight hours tonight, that's when it's going to sweep closer to Mississippi, breaking apart a lot though, losing its energy as it moves its way closer to the Ohio Valley. But we fixate ourselves all the way over into Houston and Corpus Christi with that enhanced risk issued by the severe weather outlook into the afternoon hours today. So lots of changes right around the corner, but those communities can receive close to around 2 to 3 inches of rain, making it challenging for those out on the roads. We'll keep you updated on that here in the Weather Center.
Yeah, Dallas-Fort Worth, obviously an area of concern given all the travel that's going to happen, so we'll keep an eye on that throughout the day. Jessica, thank you so much. That is it for us at CBS News 24/7. I'm Sarah Donchi. Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll leave you with these live pictures of Portland.